Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, okay, progress. So this is not a meeting update of our project, but rather progress is actually standing for how can we promote green, resilient, and sustainable SMEs. Now, before we get into the SME portion of it, and let's just briefly set the scene with some, national and global level developments as well. So supply chain sustainability and actually, scope 3 emissions are really taking an increased attention on many of the corporate climate action goals, because scope 3 emissions are accounting for majority of the emissions. And it also is the most challenging parts, according to many companies. How do you start actually measuring and engaging your scope 3? Not only how you're going to reduce emissions along the scope 3. So there's one study by CDP that actually showed that, supply chain emissions can be on average more than 11 times higher as compared to your operational emissions. So this is clearly showing the impact that this has. Now, of course, regulators are also following the trends by making these data disclosures mandatory. So with SBTi, it already is. Also, ISSB has announced that this will also be made mandatory. And with upcoming other programs such as the CBAM by the EU, will also make supply chain emissions very important for Malaysian companies to continue on being competitive. Now, on the financing side, and banks also have, this challenge to actually categorize and disclose data according to Bank Negara CCPT. So how do actually their financing activities have an environmental impact as well? Now, overall, for many of the audience, and when you do make your climate pledge, then how do you actually get the data from your supply chain? Where many of these SMEs are actually coming into play. So with many of the SMEs, some of the challenges are that they don't have the internal capacity or the resources to disclose their data properly. So this is where, SME sustainability is becoming very important. And hence we have embarked together with Alliance Bank on a program to actually help and facilitate this transition. But before we go there, we just want to take stock of what is currently the state of play with SMEs and sustainability.
Thank you, Shweta, and very good afternoon to everybody. So earlier this year, Alliance Bank, we commissioned the survey with 600 over SMEs, local SMEs, because our purpose was we wanted to understand what was happening on the ground so that we can tailor relevant solutions, practical solutions for the local SMEs in the relation of their sustainability transition. Now, of course, a lot of these also are SMEs who are formed part of the supply chain of corporates, which is a big part of our SME's business model in Malaysia. We did this together with UNGC-MYB, of course, as well as SME Corp. So these are some extracts of the insights, but the full report, if you were to just do a Google search Alliance Bank ESG survey, you'll be able to get the full report, and a lot more insights are there. But generally what comes out is that many SMEs actually do believe that practicing ESG will create long-term value and increase their business opportunities. So this is something that, in a way, they already know, or they have seen, or they have done projects that have proven that. Secondly, a large majority of them actually aim to pursue ESG improvements, and those who have done so have actually reported improved profits and cost savings. So obviously there is a link between adopting sustainability and business profitability. And that's something that is very important so that local SMEs can move away from the mindset that ESG is a cost, ESG is compliance. Whilst there are elements of that, obviously, as part of doing business, but many of them have found out that essentially ESG can be married together with business profitability and success and growth. And I think that's one of the key things that we have found out that will actually spur the sustainability transition of local SMEs, right? And as a result, many of them, even though they have not yet adopted, they understand the need to do so, and they have plans to do so. Now, obviously, how they can get there, what is the journey, what's the roadmap, that is obviously something that maybe a lot of them need help with. And that's something that we are very happy to partner with UNGC-MYB for programs that can actually move the needle in this area. But obviously, you can see that why adopting ESG is thus important. Basically just makes a lot of business sense, as many of them have discovered, right? And that's kind of validating some of using data to validate some of the work and the discussions that have happened throughout this afternoon.
Yeah. So with that, and seeing that a lot of SMEs are actually keen to adopt ESG and also climate action plans, really, as Roy mentioned briefly, some of the challenges are just that they don't have the technical know-how. So this is where we actually are launching our Progress, which is a climate action plan specifically for SMEs that are in your supply chains, into the corporate supply chains. So very top level. And what the process of the program is that they can actually do a climate action assessment, so a climate assessment, just to take stock of where are they currently in terms of a climate readiness level. From there on, they can also then download a report and do some peer benchmarking. Not only can they download a PDF report, but they also will have a dashboard where they can actually share this report directly with their corporate supply chain owners and also identify where are some of the gaps. So we don't just want to leave them only with this is your climate readiness level, but rather what are going to be the next steps taken from there on. Now, very key to this is that all of the program elements have been really built specifically for SMEs. Of course, you're all welcome to as well take some of our other assessment tools on this part, but in a way that it is simplified content and also as descriptive as possible, so that it is relevant for SMEs based on all different type of sectors and also from different sizes, so that it can fit all of them. Now, just a bit more of details on how this assessment tool has been actually made. So it has been actually founded on the ISO standards and relevant standards. So of course, looking into environmental management systems, as well specifically into GHG management. And then from those other ISO relevant standards, it has also been overlaid with the CCPT, because we need to ensure that it's also relevant for the Malaysian context as well. Now, from there on, we have, our first list of questions actually came up with 150 questions. But then when we tested it with some of our corporate members, they said, no, 150 questions is way too much for our suppliers, for our SME suppliers. So we have actually, from there on, selected it to 35 questions only. And so once that these yes/no questions have been answered, there is the option to actually capture some quantitative data in terms of if they have their carbon footprint data readily available. So from there on, once that they have generated their results, whether they are, climate unready towards like the full level of climate readiness, it will also then generate a customized climate action plan. So really, it is a very descriptive plan that can directly guide them and is ready for implementation on how do you actually take the next steps to improve your overall climate performance. So where do you start with your GHG measurement? And from there on, how do you set the baseline and really bringing it less abstract to make it less scary and then for these SMEs? So those are the outcomes. Now, for financing perspective, the CCPT is also an important outcome from there, and a dedicated dashboard. So the key benefits and then for the SMEs is that they have this easy access into these tools, and also for the corporates, what we're looking at is to have them to provide a dedicated dashboard where you can have the aggregate data of the whole supply chain, and from there on also make some targeted interventions. So let's say if there is a low performance on climate governance, for example, from a corporate side, then that should be able to help as well. What are some of the specific programs that can be implemented? So not only are we looking at this whole program, but we're also looking at it from an ecosystem perspective. So this is an important collaboration that we have with Alliance Bank to see how we can all work together to make it also more attractive for the SMEs to participate in this.
Yeah, thanks. So from the bank standpoint, we understand the need to be a catalyst in this area. So for that reason, we have put together some, I would say, incentives that actually reward a certain behavior of the suppliers in the supply chain of corporates. So one of them is really for them to have a free access to the tool that Shanta has shared. We call it Climate Positive Program as an overall program. I think essentially what that means is that you get to assess and you get a way to get into a simple report that is based on international methodologies, accepted methodologies, right? And so we're very happy to, when we launch this together with Shanta, to offer up in a way, an early crowd boost or incentives, so that whoever we work with, we want to offer that at a very low entry point. Now, secondly, is also in terms of our own banking benefits. So we also put together various type of financing packages that will be tiered according to the performance or the readiness of the company, of this particular SME. And I think that would make it a bit more, quote unquote, sustainability linked in that sense. So that it's very clear that the benefits that they get can then be tied back to the improvements that they make, or their readiness level in terms of sustainability. And obviously, we will also use some of our bank advantages, like providing fast lanes for processing, as well as helping to market and PR the stories of some of these SMEs and giving them even more highlight for the things that they do or the good work that they're doing. So these are things that the bank can put together. And thirdly, we also work with our ecosystem outside of the bank. So as part of our strategic partnership program, we also get access to many different type of green tech solution providers. And these are also like-minded companies or like-minded people who are also willing to provide deals and exclusive offers to basically incentivize this whole movement in the supply chain. And we've gotten commitment from some of them, as well as training toolkits, and also for some SMEs who require it, the need for the next level of certification to essentially provide them that credibility, validation that they will need, especially for many of those who are serving international markets, who are serving MNCs or corporates. And certainly that will be something that helps to differentiate them. And the good news is many of them recognize that these are relevant to them, right? So these are just some of the things that we've put together, and hopefully to move that whole journey forward together with everyone in the room, as well as UNGC MYB. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, I'm being nudged by my colleagues to please end this presentation right now. And but if you do have any further questions, please feel free to contact me or do visit our booth for further questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Shanta and Mr. Roy, for your presentation.